Happy May 1st, Karen. It is wonderful to see your face. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's May 1st, 2023. Look at this.
Happy May Day, Katie. If we were in The Handmaid's Tale, that would mean something. But
Oh,
oh yes, I don't. Did you ever read The Handmaid's
I
Tale?
actually never read it. I never saw the show either because everyone told me I needed to watch it slash read it, and then they're like, probably not because it will give you nightmares. That was I kind of got the shtick. What
Yes,
happened in The Handmaid's Tale that had to do with Mayday?
it was the code for if you basically if you were a handmaid and if you were in the resistance, then you knew it was like, oh, what a beautiful May Day it is. Then you would know because the handmaids all right, they like
Oh.
all would hang out together and go shopping together and whatever, and that was how you knew that the other handmaid was part of the resistance and hadn't been completely brainwashed.
Got it. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I really should watch the show. Have you watched the show?
I have not watched it, but that was what I mean. That was one of my favorite books for years. I
Really?
love that book. Yes, I read the sequel and really loved it. Like, yeah,
Oh, that's really cool. Maybe I'll read the book, not watch that. Because sometimes like visuals kind of like get to me, but like books not so much. Like I can read a book that's like a little, disturbing, but I not movies I'm very sensitive with the visual of it.
me too. I
Yeah.
mean, it's still disturbing. Don't get me wrong, and especially post the last this era, post all of the thing. Yeah, I don't even need to tell you.
Totally.
It's yeah,
I know. I'm like post, but also present in that
correct.
Trump's going to be running. Like it's like, yeah, that whole, yeah, I know. It's, well, here we are in another mini pod, in another fabulous day. I will tell you that the weather has finally turned and
Mm.
it is 40s in the morning, which is a huge excitement. And then it turns into mid 60s by noon. And it's like, I am a different human being, Karen. I really am. I don't even need to eat sweets anymore because I have enough sweets. Like I have sweetness in my this is a weird analogy, but like you get it. Like I'm just happier so I don't have to like manufacture happiness with sugar, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm going for walks. It's great. Is the weather good in Chicago?
Oh, I'm so excited for you. I love that manufacturing happiness with sugar. Oh man, that's gonna stay with me. We had that brief, beautiful era of 80s, and now it is like 49, the high is 49, but the low is back down to like 30 something, and it just makes us all really angry.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry to
okay.
hear that. I hope it gets back up and then it just stays in the 80s.
Gosh, like I'll even take a gradual, like I don't need 80s in April, right? But
Totally.
like I don't want to be wearing my winter coat. Like it's one of those things where like I'll go outside in my like in between season coat and
Mm-hmm.
come back in and put my winter coat on.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. I totally get that. Yesterday, I went out for drinks with some friends and I wore a short dress and like a button down as a coat. I was trying to be stylish. It didn't really work, but like I froze my ass off and I was like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to freeze. And then I got back in my car and I have a Subaru where it has like one of those seat heater things. And I swear to God, I like burned off some of the skin on my butt because I was so fucking cold and I didn't even care. And I was like, thank God. I'm like, I was so, but it's like, I've just felt like, you want to wear bikinis when it's like 55 degrees. Like that's,
oh yeah.
yeah. Oof. Okay. So we have a short period of time today
Yes.
and let's get into it. I love this topic of owning your shit.
God help us. And thank you for being willing to talk about this one in our compressed timeline today.
Absolutely.
It is Wednesday, and already this week I have had 2 days of being either called on my shit by someone else or realizing that I needed to take accountability for my role in something. And actually, it's 3 days this week because, oh my God, it happened over the weekend too. This is a theme. You Mercury retrograde. You just go fuck yourself.
Seriously. Seriously. I mean, how do you handle it, Karen, when someone calls you on your stuff? Because yeah, I'll tell you how I handle it, but I would love to know how you handle it first. I'm sure much more gracefully than I do.
Oh no, MLB is listening right now and being like, oh no, she does it. Like I can already hear it. Yeah. Um, Depends on the context, of course. I mean, one of the people who called me on my shit this week was my therapist. which is
That's a tough blow.
oh
That's a
my
tough
God.
blow.
I mean, she's right, right? And
Always.
yeah, it was humbling, right? It is very humbling. And I feel like when my therapist calls me on my shit, I just have to be like, hey, no, nah, man. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, it is different with different people. I'll just leave it at that.
Totally. If Tyler calls me on my shit, I like 100% of the time don't handle it very well, which I'm really working on. 100% of the time. So this actually happened yesterday. Yesterday, maybe Monday, I don't know. Anyway, I was telling him about something that I was a little bit frustrated about, and I was like, "Well, this happened and this happened." And he's like, "Well, wait, did you insert yourself for that to happen?" He said, "Insert yourself." And I was like, "Oh, how dare you?" I was so upset. And like he didn't even say it meanly. He really didn't. He like genuinely was just asking the question. And I was like, and then I was like, well, actually, and then I started explaining it. And then I realized as I was explaining in more detail that the only way to explain it was to say that I inserted myself. And so it was like, I actually, yeah, I did. I did. And so then later in the conversation, he's like, so yeah. And I'm like, I did insert myself, but I prefer to be the one to say it's like I'm in the wrong, obviously. But I don't like being called on it from him. I really don't.
One day we will do an episode on marriage and long-term marriage because y'all are at what, 14 years?
13, yeah, 13 in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And it's just like I feel it's such a bummer because it's like I tell him when he does call me on my stuff, he oh, are you okay, Karen? Oh, shoot.
So sorry.
You're
Oh
totally
my
fine.
God.
Are
I'm
you have
taking you on a Zoom roller coaster.
You're totally fine. Is it a microphone issue?
Yes, hold.
Oh,
Talk
you're good.
amongst
Oh,
yourselves.
I'll just talk about amongst myself. So yeah, so I feel like what I've tried to do is whenever he wants to call me on something, I've been trying to ask him to soften the way he explains it to a point of like I literally will tell him, I'll be like, okay, I can see your point in that you just called me on that, but it would be really much better for me if you had said something and then I say, like, Katie, I think you're so smart and have great ideas, but you definitely could have said that a little bit differently or could have done something a little bit differently.
Something that you said reminded me that I hadn't plugged my microphone in. So I decided to plug my microphone in while you were talking, which is chaos. And I apologize.
Don't be sorry. It's totally fine. Life. This is totally life, and it's okay. And you sound beautiful either way, but now I can
Thank
tell that you
you.
have your microphone. But yeah, being called on your shit by your significant other or therapist, I guess, not so much fun. I will say that like I called myself on my shit this past week. I had and I really do believe in like apologizing when I'm in the wrong. Like I know like I'm not perfect, not even close, not even like in the sphere of like, like in that universe, but I did have an instance where I actually felt really bad. And it was last week. I was in Michigan and I had a very, very packed schedule. And at one point, I was going to go over to my dad's house to have breakfast. And it was unfortunately sandwiched between such a packed schedule that I didn't sleep the night before. I really didn't. And so
Oh
it was
no.
actually, I ended up having to cancel within like an hour and a half of the breakfast. And that just sucks. And like, that's just a shitty thing to do. And like, I wasn't even going to see my dad and his partner, Betty, very much. And there were other family members there. It was a mess. And so I canceled, and thankfully my dad and Betty and actually Betty's family, they were all very gracious and like understand that I'm trying to figure out my, sleeping, or I was trying to figure out my sleep schedule while I was, in Michigan, and they were all very kind. And yet I it's not that I'm like trying to like get down on myself like and like over make myself feel worse than I should, but like that's legitimately shitty. And like I am calling myself on it. Like I shouldn't have planned it. That would have been better. And I'm not very good at that.
Oh man.
Sucks.
I'm I'm glad they were all gracious about it. And I mean, it happens. And jet lag is real. You're
Yeah, it
what,
is.
3 hours ahead in Michigan, right? You're
Correct.
going from Pacific time to Eastern time. Like it's just a thing. It's
but I get it. But I appreciate that you were apologetic about it, right? Like,
Totally. And it's
yeah.
not okay. It's not. And I'm like, I'm actually owning that it's not okay either. And
Yeah.
it's like, and then, we're all moving on but it's like that's shitty. And I want to like I don't want to like sweep it like, oh, like no, like people actually like had their lives planned around that and that's shitty. And yet it's like where's the line between for me it's like getting too mad at yourself for too long and like moving on. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. I feel like I also had a situation this weekend where it took me way too long into a conversation to realize that all someone needed from me was an apology.
Oh, shit.
Right. Right. And if you're talking to someone and you need them to apologize and you don't explicitly say, this really hurt my feelings, or I like no one ever says you owe me an apology. You're never going to say that. But like
Mhm.
without the context of knowing like the person was hurt or whatever, I didn't apologize initially. And I feel like the longer that goes by in a conversation, right? Your face
Oh
when
god.
when an apology is required or needed, the longer that goes by that you don't do it, the worse it gets. And it's like, oh, this was dumb. Like this was really dumb that it took me this long to realize like I'm getting defensive. Like that was the other thing was like realizing like, oh, I have gotten defensive. So not only have I not apologized, but like now I'm being shitty about it. Like,
Oh, worst. And it's like
sucks.
you can hover over your body and be like, "Stop, stop." Like it's like, but then you don't stop because you're like, "Wait, but I want to say my point." And it's like always leading with "I'm sorry" is a great idea. Like I know I'm
Yes.
with you, Karen. I'm not good at that at all. Like, yeah. I have had multiple times where Tyler has just after I try to explain myself, it makes it so much worse. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that's 100% of the time. And then he's like, "All I needed for you to say was I'm sorry." Like that's it. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, "Okay, but what about the context of my sorry?"
Context. Oh my God.
Right. Well, the context doesn't actually matter, I realize, because when I want him to say he's sorry, I don't give a fuck about the context.
Let me tell you where you can put your context.
Exactly.
Oh my God, it's so true. It's so true. I feel like uh I'm gonna grapple with this context thing because I also feel like in every situation, every disagreement, every whatever, there are two sides to it. I feel like I think I got defensive and thinking like, well, I'm telling you where I was coming from in that moment.
Of
I'm
course.
explaining to you where I was in that moment. And it's like, you're right. It doesn't matter if somebody
Yeah.
just needs you to apologize. It doesn't.
Right, because later you can talk about it when like I know. I mean, I say all this and it's like no, I don't do it in practice. Like I wish I did. I wish I had that clear thinking because you feel attacked when someone's upset at you and then you're supposed to apologize when you especially when you genuinely were not like I mean, I definitely have done stuff where I'm like that's kind of shitty. Are they going to be upset about it? And then it's like, "Oh yeah, they are." But then it's and then I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay." Well, then I guess I'm sorry. But then when you actually truly are like just shocked by their anger and then you're like, "Oh, okay, okay. Well, your feelings matter too, I guess, even though
I guess.
I guess. I know."
I will say, I don't, I won't say who this person is. I do have someone in my life now who is very good about saying, and it's infuriating in the moment, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, I need you to say more about why you're upset before I apologize because I don't want
Oh.
to just say, I'm sorry and have it be meaningless. I want to understand so that it is a genuine acknowledgement and apology. But in the moment, of course, it's just like, you should fucking know what you did, right? But it's like,
Wow.
I like the knee jerk. So if it takes too long to say you're sorry, that's bad. And if you apologize too soon without really knowing why, I think that's
Mhm.
also bad.
Wow, that is a mic drop right there. I mean, that is so that's really helpful. It's like you're actually like validating the other person, the one that's upset, their experience, and then listening and then like being able to react in a more educated way. I mean, that's and then it's more meaningful, like you say, like it's
That's
makes
right.
sense. Wow.
Yeah.
That's like next level shit. Like that's amazing.
It is infuriating though in the
Ugh.
moment.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but owning your shit is a good thing to like it's nice to just like know that we're not walking around like peacocks all day and like we actually have faults and it's okay to have faults and like it's like those are all part of what makes us human and beautiful and yeah, I don't think it's so bad to have shit that you need to own, you know?
I absolutely don't. And the beauty of being able to repair when you have done something that you need to apologize for.
Mhm.
You can't get
Absolutely.
there unless you do that first. So,
Absolutely. Totally. And it's always worth it because then it like opens up a deeper conversation about like what's really under anger. It's like I remember a therapist telling me that anger is a secondary emotion and it's like usually under that is sadness or fear or, something else that's more pressing that's hard to access.
oh man, for me, it's disappointment.
Okay, yeah,
Almost always
disappointment.
under anger is disappointment, which is really
Interesting.
of such a vulnerable. I feel like anger is aggressive and
Yes.
all of those other things are very vulnerable.
Yes.
So it's so much easier to be angry.
Totally. It is so vulnerable to be disappointed.
Mm.
Oh gosh. It's just we're not taught to like express our disappointment, like that's
No.
tough. Well, I feel like this is again tip of the iceberg as with most of our pods, but I really appreciate talking to you, Karen, in this very short mini pod. Thank you all for listening, and we wish you the best of luck in owning your shit. We will see you next week.